With the current meta being extremely narrow and the Darkstar Cup coming up, top tier players have been scrambling to find any new lines, due to which a new reroll comp has been found. My name is Boris, and today I'll be looking at the Challenger MF reroll. First, quickly about the comp, then a VOD review from a top tier player. The approach is the general 3-cost reroll comp approach, where we are ideally playing from a Misfortune or an Urgot Orb paired with 80 Slams and Primordian. However, just playing around Primordian is going to be great, as they are also going to give us the extra econ. If we are going for Lost Streak, we are looking for any form of an econ engine. Going into the stage 3, we evaluate our item and econ situation and see if we have the possibility for chasing Diana 3. If we do not do so, we just play the standard variant with the Belveth. From a win streak or a mixed streak spot, we are fine to delay our level 7 to the start of stage 4, but we want to be preserving as many lives as we can going into the stage 4, as that's where the current meta comps are striking the hardest. From a lost streak, we want to definitely be spiking on 3-5 with our 2 stars and win the last 2 fights of stage 3. We are aiming to hit our carries at the end of stage 4 or 5-1. Do not be afraid to send deep, as going below 2 lives is going to be very risky. And once we are able to push levels, we are leveled to level 8 for a Kindred or a Morgana, or we can simply tack in a Kali to gain the crit for our units, but it's fine to delay that to level 8 if you're able to make that. Other notes regarding the comp: our tank is going to be holding the Sunfire, plus any tempo slams we make. We definitely have a 3 item tank going into the stage 4. Do not be afraid to take item augments. We are playing a reroll with multiple potential carries, therefore first secure that econ, as it's going to be quite expensive, and then look for item augments. Maokai 2 is going to be a stronger tank than the Ornn 2, but Ornn 3 is going to be stronger than Maokai 3. However, generally you're going to be going for one of them, as you're going to be lacking the items or the econ in most cases. If you make it to both, then generally you're going to have the HP items on the Maokai, especially as he loves that Warmogs, and Ornn can hold whatever is going to be your strongest items. In most cases, you're going to be moving that Sunfire over to the Maokai. We are utilizing our sword priority first to secure that Deathblade for MF, as that is a crucial item in her kit, allowing her to strike even stronger with her ability, as well as having that ricochet damage right there. In the terms of positioning, we always want to ensure that our Ornn is going to be fronted enemy carries to delay that. However, sometimes you have to gamble that they do not do a last second positioning swap. And on the emblems front, since we're running the Rast, we are fine to be easily pivoting into 4-piece traits. Something like a Bastion and a Brawler can synergize nicely. Challenger is going to be a free +1. Same goes with Nova. And Marauder, you can do some little finessing by dropping, for example, the Belveth and having the Marauder emblem there in the Diana variation. For our itemization, since the comp is so fresh, we are still experimenting with it. The meta sites have even made changes as I was making this video. For the MF, the general agreement is that you want some form of attack speed item, or Spear of Shojin is completely fine, but definitely want to have that Deathblade. And then for last slot, you're fine to be slotting in a Giant Slayer, or if you're going to have a lot of attack speed just purely from the Challenger trait, also Infinity Edge and Striker's Flare are performing quite well to have her the ability to send out those nukes. For Urgot's Terax, Gauge is performing extremely well together with the Giant Slayer, allowing you to burst through these tanky frontlines such as the Ramesses in the meta. And then for last slot, any form of an AD item, Deathblade, i.e. QSSS, are all performing quite well. Whereas Diana has the standard build of Titans, BT, and then for last slot, Eon seems to be performing a little bit better than the Rageblade, but it's completely fine whichever you're able to spare at that point. On the artifacts, Dawncore, Flickleblade, or Fishbones for the MF are performing quite well. Urgot only seems to still like that Prowler's Claw, whilst Diana has that Seeker's and Wit's End. And as mentioned, for augments, first prio econ, then some items, whilst on the combat front, something like a Jeweled Lotus, Focus Fire are all great. And since you're running so many duplicate components, Replication can definitely save the game for you. On the gods front, since you're playing a reroll comp, Varus is amazing. Kael to provide us with the necessary amount of items. Ahri provide extra econ, whereas Yasuo can also further amplify the damage of our unit. And in a game like TFT, it's amazing to funnel a lot of power into a single unit. As usual, this cheat sheet is going to be available in the link down below, along with all the other ones I've made. Let me know down in the comments if there are any other comps you want me to be making cheat sheets on. And now, let's jump in our VOD review. For our VOD review, we are going to be jumping in game with Entre Infame from France. For those who have not heard of him, he's generally a tier 2 player who has participated in many Tacticians Trials and Cups, winning one in set 12, as well as finishing in top 40 in the Paris Open. We are starting in the multiple 1-cost start encounter, Therefore, we want to definitely be looking on the possibility of holding onto any form of pairs in order to make our strongest board for the early game. That's how you generally approach it. Or you use this as an extra econ to make an early 10 gold. And unfortunately, we were a little too slow to hold on to here. We're going to opt to go for making 10 gold and slotting in these Primordian units as we got the early Belveth, playing that as an econ engine for a possibility to quite possibly be playing into this line already from our mindset here. When looking for a VOD review for this game, I noticed that he had been playing this comp quite a lot, therefore possibly already in back of his mind, he's definitely looking for the ways to get into it and try it out from different kind of spots and see what success it can net. Our slam at the moment is a Sterex Gauge, a decent slam that we can already be making for that Urgot onto the Briar or a Belveth if we manage to hit that. Coming up in our augment selection, backline blueprint is generally a little less valued than the frontline one due to this emblem netting you a possibility to give you the challenger or marauder emblem. Challenger emblem not being bad for this line, however it's not going to be as worth as simply the breakpoint is not as strong, and you definitely would want to be utilizing this 3 cost in order to tempo. We have our opener set, we have already a Cho'Gath pair already paired up with us. Salvage bin, a neat item augment for tempo, especially you can just make these early slams. I quite like it on 2-1. However, Portable Forge has a higher potential for the upside and can set us a clear direction where we want to be taking this opener right away. With Salvage Bin, we would have to commit pretty much to the item slam we're offered. And other options, solo leveling is something good with strong, for example, like the Briar, great econ augment in that aspect. Solo plate is good in your, for example, APA Soul Flex that we're not playing into, or something with a very strong frontline, for example, Corky can use it quite well on the Duramas. Seems we're defaulting the Forge and ripping it open right away. Fishbones is one of these artifacts that is theoretically quite strong onto the Misfortune. Could consider a possibility of Gambler's Blade, but we would want to synergize that with some form of attack speed item, and we are not inside of it right away. Yasuo's blade work is simply, throughout the set, seem to be quite underperforming. The fights in the late game are just too fast for this wild effect to gain a value, whereas Thresh's Lantern is something neat in these reroll comps as a possibility for you to pull up an extra valued unit, generally going to be something like a frontline unit. But we would want to be streaking around it right away, and we do not have the upgraded frontline. Fishbones is simply going to be the most value, and if you're thinking about this line already with a Sterex Gauge Slam, definitely something we could be considering as we want to be wanting quite a lot of offensive items for ourselves. Our components are definitely leading into the direction of playing around this line, otherwise we could be considering for form of, for example, Corky. With the sword, obviously, they would want to be keeping that open for our Death Blade. We're going to be simply econing up, giving up on the Cho'Gath pair as we win the first fight and are not looking for a potential to streak, so it looks like we're going to be looking at a possibility for playing from a lost streak. We have not scouted the lobby, so it seems that we are pretty much set in our game plan in some form of a fashion. Find the Belveth pair, find that Rek'Sai too, and this is why the Primordian opener is so great. You can be both playing around the MF items with Belveth item holder, or the Briar holding onto the Urgot items, or just any items, just slam on whoever is going to be the strongest on your team, for whom you have the traits to synergize with, and you can go with there. Not going to be committing this Sterex Gauge just yet, as we also want quite a lot of belts. We want the open swords for the MF, as the DB is such a high value item on her, and we are not in a position to streak. Therefore, going to be just chilling here, trying to perhaps position in a way to kill off some units, but we see there's an anima player. Volterix here is going to most likely be breaking our streak. We are playing in a high EU West Challenger lobby. The player is at the moment at 1.2k LP. The Reach for the Stars Jax with Jax dude is something also very scary. I've made a video about it. This dude is an absolute beast with the 2 stars, so you can find that as well in my channel. Coming up on our god selection, we would ideally looking for either some form of an econ or items. At the moment, our econ situation is quite good. We have managed our early game quite well, and our offerings are going to be Soraka or Yasuo. Soraka could potentially provide us with some belts. Blessing of Prosperity, this tooltip is apparently bugged. I believe it gives 105 health for each interest you can earn if you hover it over in game. However, the acceleration hex is absolutely amazing. Even though it's some redundancy and attack speed, I believe it's going to provide the most value for our reroll line, especially when you're able to further buff up our units. Find another sword for ourselves through this selection, so we have the DB sorted if we wanted to be slamming that right away. Again, the issue here with the Fishbones as a single item is that it's not going to be as great at picking off the units in the early game as we would ideally want to. picking up the Briar too. And our econ is looking quite good, especially if we are able to dodge the anima player going into the 2-1, the stage 2 PvE, and have that loss streak going there, and then potentially look for a potential to spike on stage 3. Able to pick up a win here against the Loot Singularity player. I'm a little surprised I'm seeing this augment being picked at the top tier elo. Perhaps they simply had no better option, but it's known as the for fun augment, as it's simply just too slow at generating the econ. I believe we might still also be considering a possibility for some form of Primordial reroll. We are getting these Rexage, but we have opted to level here as well in order to finish off from 2 streak. We want to make the best use of our gold, and if we win, the upside is quite high. And here we go, we are up against this anima player, possibly yielding them a worse loss, providing the tempo. And these small art margins are what make the top player and higher elo lobbies so much more scarier than the lower ones. Closing up on the 2 streak right now, and it would be a prime if you're able to find this Belvet 2 from somewhere. But we find the MF, and it seems like we are pretty much set in our mind right here. Able to slot in the challenger, get an attack speed buff on her, and with the attack speed from the Hex and the Fish Bones, I believe that we might perhaps even consider passing up on the Rage Blade. Have to see how our components work out. We get the Urgot here as well. Very well played early game. Holding off a little bit, recognizing that we have potential to spike, and now with the econ that we made earlier, able to push level 6 already and try to pick up some wins onto this stage, is we want to be preserving lives before we go into the next stage, slamming the utility in form of a Sunfire and completing another item. So we're definitely trying to see if we can continue this win streak, holding on to these Aatroxes as well. And he has the board already pretty much in the planner, just going to fill out these last slots right here with a standard variation of the Kindred, Maokai, Rast, and Ornn. Secured a win and going. Have to pick up this Ornn now and looking for next augment selection. Hedge Fund is something. Now, we would ideally be looking for some form of econ. Hedge Fund is not the greatest we want to be see, just too slow. It requires you to be holding on to too much gold, especially as you want to be spiking around 2 stars. But perhaps since it's econ, we might just have to rip it. 1 buff, 2 buff. We have no great use of the blue buff at all, and we do not think MF is the best at applying this red buff either. Tiny but deadly more into your melee comps, where you can also utilize the movement speed gain. We do not exactly have that, so perhaps we would just have to default Hedge Fund and not be too happy about it right here. Do hit wise spending. We have leveled to 6, and this is something that we could definitely now be starting to roll, as we have the possibility of hitting our 3-cost pairs and upgrades as well. But yes, we can see we defaulted the Hedge Fund. Still debating if he wants to trifecta. Generally, it's obviously tailored as a 3-cost reroll augment, but you're earning 6 3-cost, and this buff can go on random ones. If it does not land on your carries, you are pretty much down a combat augment, at least like a half a combat augment in value. Going to be utilizing our free rolls. Let's see if he's going to be digging a little bit more. Considering this double Rek'Sai here to be quite strong, our board is quite upgraded, and we have definitely a potential to spike. We have a lot of meat on our board. Going up against this Zoe that simply has a Rage Blade, so she might lack the pure damage part to be playing around. And it's also interesting that he opts to be playing around this MF1 rather than the Belvet 2, perhaps considering that this Belvet is simply not going to be as safe. Now we are on some pairs, so we can roll down to further upgrade our board. Would want to get this Ornn, and yes, we're going to do so. And now we have already a nice board lined up for ourselves. Playing around with it, I believe, yeah, we're going up on giving up on this Primordians here, seeing an option if we can make the 50 gold here. And as you can see, we are slotting the items onto the Maokai 2 here, as that's going to be considered a stronger tank than just the Ornn 2. Nicely able to string together a 5 streak, so we're definitely looking at more potential of rolling here, as going on 6 streaks could be massive. Storm Hex is something also need to consider, perhaps with this Urgot, as he has some ability to spread a little bit to apply it. And the Soraka 6 gold is not that much, and we'll be gambling for the extra 3 gold. I do not think it's going to be just worth the 6th edition's health. If it was a belt, was something perhaps we could be considering when lining ourselves with Soraka. But just going here with Yasuo would be my instinct to go with. He seems to agree. And we find another Urgot right there with a bow, which is also a component we're definitely in need of quite a few we can make use of. Still seeing this anima player who seems that I perhaps missed it. I think they might have cashed out already, looking for a potential to play into some form of a line. And now we are on this MF pair, going to be pushing levels as well, so close to level 7, and able to slot in the Trust, which is quite a lot of value for our board. staying at 30 here is absolutely completely fine, especially since it is a possibility for us to push a 6-3, just going to slam the open bow and hope picking up an easy win here against the Jacks player, who does not seem to manage to exactly capitalize on the early tempo, as they would want to be definitely picking up the fight, but have lost some HP right now. Have that BT, have that Eon, just do not have the Titans, which is so crucial for the Jacks as well. Opting to transition items here for the Urgot, as we have that Storm Hex, and he's going to be upgraded. Going up against the, this anima player has opted to play into, it seems like the Yana reroll, which would actually benefit us. I do not believe this to be as strong of a line, or perhaps they're playing for some kind of ASOL, but they have cashed out a lot. This is a weird line that they're taking. Have to see how they manage to finish off the game. Perhaps considering the AP just to be too contested now. They have opted to level. Okay, so they're going to be playing more in the standard way, just with the double death cap A, so that's going to be quite strong onto their side, just for holding on to extra copies for whatever. It would be nice if they were rerolling, so that we have some of the units that we're not utilizing being pulled out of the pool, but this is going to be fine. And the neat thing is that if there is a Lulu reroll player, we still have that Maokai 3 we can go for. The Ornn 3 we can go for if we do not find the Maokai 3 for ourselves. And their Urgots should not be pulled out by mech players that much in the current meta. Completing a Crown Guard and slamming the Kraken as simply be one of having fully itemized carries on the stage, and we're playing against a strong Lysandra reroll here. But simply have had to dig too deep, little behind on tempo. Their 3 gets broken by us, and we're able to punish them, which is a neat showing of how strong this comp can be when it's going up against one of the best reroll lines to be considered in the current meta as well. Next augment selection could be just ripping Band of Thieves here, get those items on the Urgot, be as strong as possible, and we have the TG, we can just transition it later. Item grab bag without the Reforger could be quite of a gamble. And then we have the tower, which could further replace our frontline presence, but I think we're quite fine on that compartment at the moment. We're also on 6 Maokai copies as well. Looking for some kind of II item augments could definitely be quite strong here, and he seems to agree with the TG. Slap that on the Urgot right away. Continual Stroller here. Now the downside with this wise spending augment here is that you are going to get to level 8, which is fine for the 3-cost reroll. Still, you can quit quite a lot, but your odds are obviously drastically reduced. And in my experience, I have sometimes even went all the way to level 9 without hitting. So there is that little bit of a worry, especially if you have pushed to level 6 early on. Going up against the Darkstar Emblem ASOL, so this is another player that has quite of a potential threat, and this is where we are worried in the stage. Absolutely ripping us with the 6 Darkstar, has the frontline, we just are unable to get through it right away. And now this is going to be our game plan. We have managed to play the early game extremely well, so now we have this cushion to utilize for ourselves to be able to sack a couple of rounds here, not have to dig too deep, play it slow, have the other 3 costs be pulled out of the pool, and cap our board as we make our way with the Vice spending onto the level 8 against the Zoe board that seems to be playing for some form of a fast 9 board, having that cluttered mine there fully and sitting at 50 gold, holding on to a Corki just to increase their AVP further, as we know how hot the line is. And this player does seem to go for the Yana reroll actually, so that is a neat thing for us. They are going there. They have already 7 copies of the Yana on our last augment selection. I do not think we can utilize the Star Hex that much, Starlight Hex. Have to see if he has the play. Soraka's Embrace is something I'm not too fond of either, as this thing could just go on something like the Aatrox, and that's not going to have a lot of value for ourselves, but could potentially be better than just simply waste the 3 mana region. However, if our spot is already locked in, could just toss this on a tank, get the Maokai cast, for example, out faster, and we could be completely fine. But Soraka's Embrace is going to be picking up a cloak. Could perhaps, be looking at something like a QSSS here, from here, as obviously we have that Shred and Sunder sorted out by the Aatrox. Picking up an early Kindred here that we cannot exactly make. Nice shop right there. We are somewhat close. Could consider potentially digging a little bit deeper here. Fortunately, a Kindred pair shows up, and now the Urgot shows up as well. Are we going to give up on the Kindred? Have to see if there are going to be any Yi players. If there's no Yi players that are chasing this Kindred too, then we could be giving up. But this is the situation where you can get bench locked if you are going for double tank setups. Simply sometimes you have to give up on one of them and commit to the other, and that's going to be your Ornn if you are obviously extremely close to the Maokai and far from Ornn, then go with vice versa. Able to find that Urgot 3, unfortunately tossed around there, but we are fine. Make our way to level 8, slotting in that Morgana, which is absolutely a complete flex unit as well. But now, okay, he's going to value the Maokai too, another pair of Maokais to be just that much stronger up against the Diana. So let's see how we fare. Should be extreme amounts of AP onto her with his double death cap and the attack speed sorted out by deadlier caps, but simply too slow to get through our front line. The Urgot 3 is actually putting a lot of work in here, and we're able to clean up the fight with the MF from the back line for our next item. So could we consider taking this? Would be a Declaw and a BT, or a BT. We have a GA. I don't think we can make use of it. I'm interested to see how he's going to be sorting that out. Perhaps he simply didn't want to invest too much, as we still have quite a lot of copies to necessity to hit, and we are on level 8 with reduced odds, as we are far from this MF. Simply valued here, it's going to be there, but could have perhaps taken, and is going to be complete 2 items for ourselves, but now we have to make this Stone Plate and a BT. Could just toss this BT on the tank, yeah, onto this Maokai perhaps. Going to go with the HP item on the Maokai, and then I guess the BT, yeah. Simply completes our items nicely, and since we're going for double tanked setup, we are quite heavily taxed on the items, but it's needed. We have this TG at least for the Urgot to hold. And now we can utilize the further anvils with the HP lead we've secured to improve our item quality. This is why, especially into this set, where you are able to get the anvils and make more informed choices, you are capable of simply sacrificing some of that early item quality early on to make these anvils, then make better decisions. Since we hit this Kindred 2, going to transition our items onto her, she's going to be a little bit stronger than the MF, obviously. And now going up against the Lulu reroll, who has thankfully not hit Lulu, more playing around that. Oh, this is the Reach for the Stars Jax, right? Reach for the Stars Jax. We're able to clean it up. I just wanted to see. Yeah, this Jax does get hurt, just constantly gets stuck onto this Ornn, and did not find a Titan's Resolve for himself, so they're in a little bit of a tough spot. Have not managed to find that Pantheon 3 either. And this is another neat thing, we are not in any form of way benefiting really the 2-cost reroll, apart from having this Belbeth 2 on our board. So you definitely want to be looking out for a potential if any other 3-cost reroll is being present in the lobby. Especially in other metas where there might be some other overlaps and non-existent overlap into this comp. Up against the Darkstar Asol again, and are we going to have... We have the frontline to stall him enough, but we just simply lacking on a damage compartment. The Black Holes have provided to be too much HP for ourselves. Able to find another Deadblade, which is absolutely amazing for ourselves. Holding onto this Morgana as a possibility for our level 9 in. We are about halfway through, and now we finally hit our board. Going to transition the items back to this MF. Probably double Deathblade's Fishbones. Yep, that seems to agree. We have enough attack speed from our trade, from the Hex, and we could just toss this Kraken on the Kindred, which is going to be a better solo item to be holding than this simply a Deathblade. Up against the Yana reroll on our frontline does crumble quite a bit. The Urgot seems to have gotten out of position, but since we have hit this, MF is able to close out a fight for us, and we secure ourselves a top 4. Showing that how well this comp can go against other rerollers, and against the other prominent meta comps is going to be the biggest challenge here. We have the Corki Riven player that seems that we might have dodged for quite a while, and then we have also obviously the Darkstar Asol. So let's see how we go up against the strongest comps in the meta. The Corki Riven has also found a Fizz 3, but only has a BT on him. Not exactly the most ideal Corki items either. But this Ornn positioned nicely. Notice that we just need to stall this side, hover scouted, and we're able to clear off with ease, even though it was just a ghost. So we have good hopes for the real matchup. Otherwise, we would be looking to either for a third tank item for this Maokai, or a little bit more damage onto this Kindred, as we are lacking a little bit in the quality of the damage, I would believe. Perhaps another Kraken, I would assume, would be just the best choice. Provides that little bit of attack speed, provides the Giant Slayer, but it's going to go with the Protector as well. The fundamental play of completing a 3-item unit first is going to be more valuable. I'm just a little bit worried that we are in some part in the mercy of these TG rolls onto the Urgot to have sufficient amount of damage, but perhaps this MF unit is simply just as busted. Going up against the Asol here, still a close fight, and we are bridging the gap. But still just a little bit lacking in the damage. Still had positioned there nicely, and now we're going to make our way to level 9, holding onto this Diana that he seems to believe is going to be the best slot in. Fully sending it here to push our way to level 9. Find the Diana 2, going to be slotting that in. Get the 4th challenger, which is actually a more meaningful breakpoint than the 3 challenger in itself. And now the Diana is on our weaker side as we were so busy rolling. We did not manage to position for this fight, so we might just lose it on the positioning alone. And yes, we do. The Aurora is able to get to our backline as the Diana has cleared up our weak side. So now we are in a little bit of a tricky situation. One of the players goes down there, and it seems that the quirky Riven player took out the ASOL player. So that's good news for us, as that was the matchup we were struggling against. Now we just again have to make sure that we position in a correct way with this Ornn, the beef in front of the Quirky, and thankfully for us this is Yasuo game, so they are kind of locking the position they're doing, but they're going to give up on the hexes nonetheless. The Volterics managed to juke us, and that is something that's going to be definitely worth it, but thankfully we still have the Smaokai in the middle who was able to stall long enough, prevent the Riven wrap. We're able to get on his backline and clear up this fight. Now this is why the double tank setups, if you're able to get there with the items, are going to be so crucial, and perhaps why he wanted to also prioritize the other item onto this Maokai as an insurance. Transitioning the Shojin onto the MF and giving up on this fish bones now. Going to want to get the cast, going to want to get the maximum damage out of it. Believing that simply the fish bones has potential downside with the RNG aspect built into it. Now we have the one right in front of Diana, so this is going to stall long enough for ourselves, hopefully. And yes, we make it to their backline, able to clean up this fight with ease and secure ourselves a win from out here. Amazingly played game by Entre Infame. Very well navigated early spot, made those early echo intervals, but still looked for ways how we can spike. Got the upgrades we needed, recognized when we can spike, preserve lives going into that stage 4 so that we can hit our reroll and cap out our board from there by continuously improving our item quality through the early slams we made to preserve these lives, and put up an amazing fight against the top tier comps through our positioning and just the gold value invested into our units. I would like to thank you for watching. As usual, all the cheat sheets are available in the link down below. Let me know in comments if there are any other comps you would like me to make these cheat sheets on, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good one.